You're only 5 years away from where you want to be. And in 6 years, I went from being broke, having no income, no sales, to having over 100 sales a year. You're not going to achieve what you're meant to until your back is up against a wall that you cannot go behind. And you have no other choice but to spring forward. And when I left my team, that's where I was.
You're in your younger 20s. This past year, you did 48 million in volume.
Of those 102 deals in 2024, 48% was from YouTube.
That's kind of surprising because you just started YouTube in 2023. So like a year and a half in, over 40% of your business came from YouTube.
Yeah. It's crazy. I didn't enjoy the suck of my business, and my business sucked. But what I've done with YouTube is I've built a business that I enjoy the suck of. We're always chasing something. That's why we're entrepreneurs. I don't think we have the personality of settling in. So this is my poison, and I've chosen it.
You're in your younger 20s, and in 2023, you did 26 million in volume, and this past year you did 48 million in volume and over 100 deals. When you look at where that business came from last year, what's that split between like referrals, social media, kind of roughly look like? Estimate.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Andrew. So of those 102 deals in 2024, 48% was from YouTube. About 25% was from my Sphere and Sphere referrals. And we have a large Facebook group, so we can attribute about 13% from the Facebook group. Agent referrals is about another 25%.
Okay.
So YouTube heavy, but then it's, a good mix of everything else.
That's kind of surprising because you just started YouTube in 2023. Mm-hmm. So it's like you're really only in June 2023. So like a year and a half in, and over 40% of your business came from YouTube.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And Matt told me, he was like, your agent, like your referral business was like huge. So it's crazy to see that the YouTube surpassed it within like a year.
So I've been licensed for 6 years. Got my license in 2018, I guess going on 7 years. I was on a team for 2 years. Just really wasn't happy. I was calling for sub owners and calling expireds, and started to do a few agent referrals, and that really kind of sparked my business. And that is what allowed me to go off of my team. In 2021, I paid them a lot of money, and I brought in the most business. And I didn't really think that was not what I wanted for my future, and that I didn't see myself being on a team forever. So I was like, what? At the time, I was not that happy just in general, and I was thinking about getting out of real estate. And I was like, before I do that, I really need to bet on myself for 12 months and try to give the solo agent thing a go. And started coming to these events that my brokerage, Keller puts on, and met Brandon Blankenship and met Matt London and Will Van Wickler and Taylor Hunt and Sarah Maslowski, all these just rock star agents. And becoming a member of their world just changed my life. Matt introduced me to YouTube. And at the time, in 2021 and in 2022, like, I had a good business. I was doing 8 million, 16 million a year. I, lived a life that a lot of 25 and 26-year-olds weren't able to. And I totally understand that. Matt, I was at a dinner with Matt at Family Reunion a couple of years ago, and he was like, I did $15 million in sales from YouTube. I was like, I want to know more about that. And after the event, he was able to walk me through, what he did. And I kind of peeled and sticked, and it really took off. YouTube's changed my life.
Matt said that you're like one of the most consistent people.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest things. I mean, really, if you look at anything, sales, business, but especially like social media and YouTube, like, were you always really consistent on things and super disciplined, or? Was that something you had to train and build?
I am, my wife and I joke about this a lot, but we're like kind of polar opposites in a lot of ways. She's very type A about a lot of stuff, and I am very type B about most stuff. I don't care a lot about a lot of things. But there's only a few things that I put a lot of attention to, and my business is one of them. I learned very early on that real estate's one of those businesses that what you put in is probably what you're going to get out if you're doing the right activities and if you're focusing on the right things. And then eventually it's going to, that curve is going to turn exponentially. And that's kind of where I find myself right now. And in the last 18 months since I started my YouTube channel, by focusing on posting a video every week and by focusing on putting 3 or 4 shorts out there every week on YouTube, it's just exploded my channel. And it's become my 20%, as you say, the 80-20.
Yep.
And it went from making sure I was staying in touch with agents from across the country and talking to my sphere of influence, like any realtor will do, to putting a lot of intention behind what video we're putting out that week. Because I know every video I put out, I'm going to get at least one closing from it. And there's not a lot of metrics that you can track where one input leads to one closing.
Yeah.
In real estate.
Are you more introverted or extroverted?
As a whole, I'd say I'm probably a little more introverted. Like in a crowd, I'm not going to be the one that's like, the life of the party. But one-on-one, I can talk to anybody.
For some reason, social media, video, a lot of introverts kind of lean more towards that. And me included. And part of that, like for me, was like, I just hate phone calls because I used to make phone calls all the time at 18, 100 phone calls a day, 200 phone calls a day.
Doing what?
I don't know if you ever heard of Cutco knives.
Yeah.
So I sold that for like 5 years.
Okay.
Before I entered like real estate. And my moving into content was like, I was doing everything possible to not make phone calls. I was like, how could I do something else that didn't require me to like stay on the phone all day?
Well, I knew that I wasn't going to be the realtor that called for sub owners and expireds. And I was doing that and I was miserable. And that's why I wasn't going to make it in real estate. Like 95% of agents don't do 95% of agents do in the first 2 years. They don't last. So I knew I had to do something different. And I was at that point, and still, I guess, to this day, just like endlessly curious about how other agents built their businesses. And when Matt told me that he did 15 million the year before from YouTube, I was like, if he can do it, not saying anything about him, but if this guy can do it, then why can't I do it? There was other agents in my market doing it. And I felt like if they could do it, I could do it, I'm not anybody special, but I know how to work. And I knew that based on what he told me, if I did these things, should yield these results. And at the time, I had really no other option but to try. I mean, I wasn't happy, and I wanted more for myself in my life.
Phil Jones has a quote that when he was kind of backed in a corner, he was like, basically, it was a variation of, if they can do it, why can't I?
So at that time, I used to like go to sleep at night listening to motivational YouTube videos. And I used to listen to Ryan Serhant's vlog that he has on YouTube. And it's changed a lot over the years, but in the early days, it was, what he does to be successful, that type of stuff. I mean, I was consuming all that type of content. And in one of his vlogs, he said that you're not going to achieve what you're meant to. And you're not going to be as successful as you could be until your back is up against a wall that you cannot go behind. And you have no other choice but to spring forward. And when I left my team, that's where I was. I was unhappy. I didn't have a lot of money. And I was not going to move back home. And I had an endless drive to make something out of myself. And to just be happy and to be proud of myself. Because at that point I wasn't. And being a realtor has changed my life.
Was it tough during that time?
Yeah. I just, I didn't really like myself, And I feel like a lot of people go through that. I think I owe a lot to this career because not only have I obviously grown professionally, but who I am now versus 5 years ago is two different people. I kind of just laugh when I think about who I used to be. And, you know, the things I know now and the things I've learned, the way I think about things is so much different. And that's probably just the evolution of life. When people say that you are the average of the 5 people you hang around most or the 5 people you aspire to be most like, that's very true. I've tried to put a lot of intention on that over the last 5 years.
It's crazy how life can change if you just push really hard for like a year or two, and how that change can be a dramatic change just in a short amount of time.
Well, you know, Gary Keller, the CEO of our company, says that you're only 5 years away from where you want to be. And in 6 years, I went from being broke to not being broke. I went from having no income, no sales, to having over 100 sales a year. And there's plenty of realtors who do a lot more business than me. But I'm pretty proud of that.
I mean, yeah, in your 20s, doing 100 sales a year, 48 million, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, yeah. Me and all my friends are kind of young, but we talk about that a lot.
It's easy to compare against other people and be like, oh, and have that kind of comparison, especially in a business, like a sales-oriented business too, where it's like the numbers are so visible.
You can't take your foot off the gas, but you got to look back and look how far you've come.
Yeah.
You know, like I'll still find myself stressing out about my year-to-date numbers, but they're very similar to last year, if not a little bit better. And I'm like, I don't feel busy enough. And then I'm like, dude, chill out. Like, you did 100 sales last year, and 6 years ago you sold 2 houses.
It's hard to sometimes take that time to reflect, step back, especially when you're in the midst of it and you're just like moving, going forward. Like, I know for me, that's like, it's hard to take that time to even appreciate, because you're just like, just keep pushing forward sometimes.
Well, I mean, that's, you know, we're always chasing something. That's why we're entrepreneurs. You know, I don't think we have the personality of settling in, you know, like a lot of our other friends who work 9 to 5, so, you know, have. I knew that wasn't the life I wanted. So this is my poison, and I've chosen it. So
video, like, was it a simple switch for you to just get on camera? And
I mean, it wasn't very natural. Like I in the past had tried to, like, you know, hold my phone up and do videos, and it just it wasn't me, you know. But I guess when there's someone standing in front of me with a camera, and it's just like I'm talking to that person and educating them about Greenville, South Carolina, or Lake Keowee, it's a little bit different. And it's funny you say that that most people who have these types of businesses are maybe lean a little bit more introverted, because that makes sense, because a lot of introverts can talk to you one-on-one, but they don't really stand out in crowds. Yeah. You know, they're not the life of the party. I guess with that mindset, but, you know, this guy is someone who wants to learn about Greenville. You just had to know what you were talking about. You know, I wasn't going to be able to fake it. It's funny, like, I've become a much better realtor and a much bigger advocate for my city because of YouTube, because I've had to learn so much.
That's the one thing that I hear from a lot of people who are like making content, especially doing YouTube because it's long form, but any of it is like, it just makes you better at your job because you're having to teach on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, at that point in someone's journey for relocating to, say, Greenville, South Carolina, you know, they don't care about real estate, right? They want to know if your city can be their next home. And if you have the ability to concisely tell them why or why it's not. So, you know, a lot of the videos that we have is informational based, and we'll sprinkle some real estate content in there. But just by researching my city over the last year and a half compared to the previous, you know, 4.5 years, it's made me a much better advocate for Greenville.
Yeah. And I want to get into like some of the content in a second.
Sure.
But I was curious, did you have any like reluctance or thought of like, because one thing some people think sometimes is like, oh, well, my market's not big, or like,
yeah,
it's not Orlando, it's not Miami.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard sometimes coming up with the content every week, a lot of times, because, you know, in a city of 80,000 people and $1 million in my general area. You know, you compare that to an Orlando or an Atlanta or Nashville or Chicago, like there's a lot more stuff going on in those places. So, and that just furthers the point of knowing what's going on, because I have to know it so that I can make videos about it, because that's what people want to know.
Yeah.
They want to know what's going on. They want to know what's trending. They want to know what's coming. So yeah, I mean, it is hard making content sometimes, definitely. But like I said, you know, my input, my 20% input, that's going to yield 80% of my results is doing YouTube. So I just, you know, have it time blocked every week to sit down and research videos and write out scripts. So
how do you come up with the ideas currently? Like, what's kind of like your process during that time block?
So I'll watch other people's videos from other markets, see what's working for them. I'll have my virtual assistant look in Google keywords and what's trending on searches to see what is trending around Greenville. Mm-hmm. And if there's any update on a video that we need to make, like I just redid a pros and cons video for 2025, and that was a really good video towards the beginning of my channel when I had 0 subscribers.
Yeah.
So updating some videos, we've been doing that a little bit, but mostly looking up news articles, looking at, you know, what other realtors are doing from across the country, and then looking up those trending searches.
When you say like news articles, for example, like, I don't know if you heard of 6 a.m. City.
Yeah.
I think they started in Greenville.
They started in Greenville?
I think. I don't.
Oh, wow.
I think, because I did research on them a little bit. I'll check it later.
I feel like I've seen that somewhere now that you mention it. But yeah, they have what's called GVL Today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're like huge, hyper local, and then they expand into 28 markets.
Yeah.
I think that just kind of shows that like people want hyper local content, especially.
Yep. Yeah, their email is awesome. You know, I'll derive content from there. They have a really good Instagram too. So yeah, little things like that, like the video I just made about the developments going on downtown.
Yep.
A lot of what we used in that video came from them. So
like probably the Greenville Business Journal too.
Yep. So we'll use Greenville News, GVL Today. We'll use the Greenville Journal, Upstate Business Journal. There's like 4 or 5 publications that we'll look at.
Nice. So this might be either obvious to you because you might already look at it, but I kind of looked at some of the numbers. But as far as like first the category of content, your development news ranked number 1 for getting the most amount of views.
Okay.
Second it was the migration content. So everything relocation, stuff like that.
Okay.
Third was like kind of cautionary, a little bit like negative-ish. And then fourth was like luxury for views. Fifth was neighborhood. And then 6th for property tours. When you think about like the content you want to create on like a monthly basis, how do you think through the mix of stuff, neighborhood, development, like relocation? Like
a lot of it's like what's doing really well right now.
Okay.
And I mean, most content is going to fall into a few buckets, mm-hmm. right? News and developments and like, where's the city going?
Yep.
Pros and cons, like comparing 2 things to one another, whether it be Simpsonville versus Travelers Rest or the pros and cons of moving to Greenville. Some type of financial thing like cost of living, market updates, and then negative stuff like the best and worst builders, or maybe you shouldn't move to Greenville and here's why, that type of thing. So I think, like you just said, your content covers a lot of stuff, but it could be deduced down into probably 3 to 5 buckets. Mm-hmm. So we make sure that we're not leaning too heavily into one bucket over the other, especially all at once. We like to spread it out.
So what's your thought on like the negative stuff? Because a lot of people they either sit in one side of the camp
sure.
on it, and they're just, I don't want to talk negative about my area.
it makes you seem more genuine, right? Way less salesy, because there's no area that's perfect, right? Mm-hmm. Las Vegas isn't perfect. Chicago is not perfect. For all the great things that each city offers, they're not perfect. Same thing with Greenville. And I've had many clients tell me that. I really appreciated the video you did on maybe reasons why you shouldn't move to Greenville. Or, I really appreciated the video you did about the builders that your clients have had bad experiences with.
As an agent, to talk a bad experience about a builder, some would be, like, I don't want that builder to hate me because I don't want to have like this bad relationship with them.
Sure. Well, in that video that I did, which has gotten a lot of traction, and a lot of people have called me because of that video, with, hey, we really appreciated you doing something like that. That was not my opinion. I made it clear that those are the opinions of my clients. And I mean, I have my personal opinions about builders, but, I think builders in my area, at least, they kind of work in buckets of price point, and that's where you start to see quality differences. Yeah. Most of the builders, let's just say in the $300 to $350 price point, there's probably 3 or 4 major players, and a lot of them are going to use, the same quality of materials. The houses are going to be built similarly. But then once you jump up to say $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, you start to get different features in houses. So I mean, I can have my personal opinion all day, but while that matters, what matters mostly is the opinions that my clients have had and their experiences with actually living and owning these homes that they bought. And that was the premise of that video.
When we look at your YouTube content, and I kind of looked at some of the, especially the areas that you focus in on. Yeah. Like one of your biggest, obviously, was just Greenville and downtown Greenville in the circle. And then the suburbs was kind of the other one. But then the other one, which I feel like you've done a great job at, was being like, I want to sell in, and I'm going to, like, Keowee? Keowee? Yeah. Like, you've made it a point to, okay, I need to create content in here. Yeah. Versus just always trying to be super broad and have that broad audience. So what's the thought process around that, and how has it helped you?
Very early on with your YouTube channel creation, you have to figure out who you're going to talk to. Mm-hmm. And I figured out that the people I was going to try to talk to the most and speak to were empty nesters or retirees. Basically anybody over the age of 50. Because they've owned homes before. They likely already own a home right now. They're probably going to sell it. So I can refer their listing to another realtor, make sure they're in good hands and that their equity's maximized in the area that they live in. And then I didn't have their dad looking over the inspection report when we got it back, because I've worked with a ton of first-time home buyers, and I've had 2 clients in those situations, the buyer and their parents. And I was like, that's not who I want to target. I'm more than happy to help those people. I enjoy helping those people. Those are my friends and my people. But if I'm going to make a YouTube channel, I want to work with people that are more experienced, who have a little bit more knowledge about what they're doing and about to do. Because it's just made my life a lot easier. They buy into your process. They don't question you as much because they don't have someone over here telling them, well, when I bought my house in 1995, this is what happened. Same thing with Lake Keowee. It's a market that's about 45 minutes away from my house in like Greenville. It's a fairly big second home market. And I enjoy being on the lake. So I owe a lot of my videographer with this, because he told me I should start doing videos on Lake Keowee. And at the time, I didn't know a lot about that market. I mean, obviously, I think I had sold 2 properties on Lake Keowee up to that point. But it was not a significant portion of my business. And he was like, there's really no other realtors that market on YouTube about Lake Keowee or Instagram or anything. And I was like, all right, well, let's just make some content about it. So I had to go and learn everything that I know now about the lake because I didn't know any of that before.
Yeah.
So all the things that you saw me do on the videos, or that these people, when they watch the videos, they see me talking about, I learned all of that in making the videos. So again, it's made me a lot better, a much more informed agent, by doing these videos. And it's led to my biggest sale ever, which was just under $4 million. I have put a lot of intention behind that. And I have worked with many families who have looked at property and a few who have bought property on the lake.
It's funny that you said what you said about like being intentional, not working with first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
Because Will said the same thing.
Well, I mean, with his golden letter, he said the same thing to me. He was like, I had to send these things to the people I wanted to work with. And that was, this is their second house. They probably have more homes. They're probably wealthy. Mm-hmm. They're savvy. So I'm not going to be hand-holding, right? And if I'm going to be doing 100 deals a year, I want the majority of those people to know what they're doing, to be able to buy into my process, and to have owned homes before, because it makes everything a little bit easier.
What is kind of not always fully understood is that the content that you create attracts who you want to work with. So you making content in that area, you started to attract those type of people because you're creating content all around it.
Yeah. And you become a much better agent to be able to help those people by making content about that. Like cost of living, I couldn't tell you what that was in Greenville before I made videos about it. What it's like to retire in Greenville, I couldn't have told you what it's like to retire in Greenville until I made videos about it. I've talked to my CPA about videos I've made. I've talked to attorneys about videos that I've made about, hey, if a really wealthy individual comes to South Carolina, are they going to have to pay an estate tax? Couldn't tell you that before, but now I could, right? So, and then, CPA questions. Like my CPA has been really, really helpful in a lot of those cost of living and tax videos that we've made. With Lake Keowee, a lot of the people that are buying on Lake Keowee are not young, because the price point is high. To buy a property on the water with a dock, average price is around $2 million now. And then just to buy a property around Lake Keowee, not necessarily on the water, there's a few neighborhoods that you could buy a house for $600,000-$700,000, but most of them are going to be over $1 million. And a lot of those people aren't my age. A lot of these people are retiring, or they're finding a second home for their family and their adult age kids to come to during the summer. And some of these people are moving here, right? Because they don't have to live where they live now because they're not working as much, or they've retired.
So when we look at kind of like the evolution of your YouTube content, you could look at like your first property tours on there. They have like no thumbnail, maybe a little bit of a title, and then you can see the evolution of your thumbnails and your titles, the topics, and then you have the time that you spent on scripts, and then you have videographer. When you kind of look at all of these pieces on YouTube and like where your time is best spent and focus, where do you think is kind of like the most important places as an agent who's busy doing 100 deals? Yeah,
my coach and I talked about this recently, because writing scripts every week sucks, and coming up with video ideas is not fun. Because to our earlier conversation, there's only so much that happens in Greenville, compared to Orlando or Chicago.
Yeah.
So you really got to dig deep sometime. And if you look at the math, there's no better activity for me to do than to write a compelling script and go and make a compelling YouTube video.
Yeah.
I've put a lot of intention on writing scripts earlier recently. That way I can go back through them and revise them, because there's some times where I feel like I'd throw a script together and the video is not that good. And what do you know? It doesn't get as many views. If there's an activity that I should focus on every day, or at least that I should be putting significant attention to every week, it's writing scripts and fine-tuning those scripts for my YouTube videos. Because sure, I can leverage that out, and I can leverage anything else out in my real estate business, truthfully. But over the last 18 months, that's been my significant income producer. So, yeah.
What's your average price point?
About mid-4s.
Mid-4s?
Yeah.
So if you get a deal from each YouTube video, roughly speaking, each video makes you about like $8,000 in GCI. I'm using 2% as like a low end.
My average is around 2.8 for buyers. So, $450,000 house, let's just say it makes me, 12 to 13 grand.
So basically all the stuff that goes into the video, it's like, you have to think of it as like this activity is a $12,000 activity to make a video.
Yeah.
Not making a video and missing a week is like losing $12,000.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to, I think that's a healthy amount of pressure to put on yourself. It's a good way to look at it.
People that I talk to, some of them do not have that same level of weight behind the script that you do. And I think that's interesting because I think it's one of the most important parts as well to do YouTube script. So can you talk about kind of what you've learned around here's how to structure a video for it to actually perform?
I have a very similar cadence in every video. So that's kind of been established. And I write my scripts very similarly to every other script that I write. I think, being myself is the most important thing. Mm-hmm. I don't try to be someone I'm not. I don't try to talk fast. I have to purposefully enunciate my words because I can mumble sometimes. But, what I've learned about script writing, I think just following my natural cadence. And I know how long a video is going to be based on how long the script is. I guess my focusing question every script I write is, all right, is this valuable for someone who's moving here? And if it's not, I'll take it out, right? Because I don't want fluff because that's how you lose people. But if I can keep someone engaged the whole time from start to finish, of course your views are going to drop down as the video progresses because most people aren't interested in the whole thing. The reason that the phone rings is because what you say matters to people. And it actually is valuable to people. Would this matter to me or does this matter to my client avatar? And if it doesn't, take it out.
So when you think of the word valuable, it can seem very broad. What does that kind of mean to you when you're looking through a script?
Doesn't matter. Yeah, I took a class in college. Can't remember the name of it. But it was one of those classes where it makes you think a lot. And what we did is we would learn how to write things a lot more concisely than the way we originally wrote them. What you say in 2 sentences, you could probably say in a few words. Or what you say in 150 words, you could probably say in 50. If something doesn't matter, it's probably not going to be valuable. And if it's not helpful, it's probably not going to be valuable. So I'm not there to hear myself talk. I don't like listening to myself talk. I'm there to make the phone ring. Yeah. And the phone's going to ring if what I'm saying matters to people.
Yeah, I think most of us don't like to hear ourselves back on camera.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like a video on YouTube now, I don't know if you're seeing this, but like as an example, we've kind of said as almost as like a standard now, like nothing under 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And like, especially with YouTube TV being, it's the #1 streaming platform. It's the fastest growing device on YouTube. Like people are watching longer content.
I haven't made like super long content. I haven't really beta tested that, but there might be a few videos you find under 8 minutes on my channel, but of 60 plus videos or 70 plus videos, every one of them is going to be 8 to 14 minutes. And you've tried the more longer form stuff, right?
Yeah.
How has that performed?
So we're seeing like there's a kind of like this a nice sweet spot of like 15 to 25 minutes where it's like you're getting a lot of depth. You're able to go from like the cloud to the dirt, get a little granular on things to show that level of insight. It gives you that length to also tell a little more story, add a little personal to it. And then also noticing that if you're doing something that's more like a tour, like a home tour, neighborhood tour, something that there's a lot of variation of what they're seeing, you can actually go 25 to 45 minutes. Like we're seeing home tours that are like 30 to 45 minutes. Like one got 70,000 views. Another just got posted this Monday and already has 23,000.
But it's got to be a cool house. Like, there's some things that have to, I guess, hit for something like that to be relevant.
For some, but that's the other thing is the way to kind of offset the home tour, because it's hard to go 40 minutes on a house because a house is a house.
Right.
The way to add to it is selling the area and the neighborhood, the community with the house as well.
So you're seeing realtors integrate home tours, but then also talk about the neighborhood or the town or the community.
Yeah. So like, for example, the title and the topic, it's kind of like inside this unbelievably cute home in one of the top neighborhoods in Greenville.
Right.
So it's like you has the understanding of the packaging. It's for this in a top area, but you're also not shutting off viewers by adding the typical price of the house. Because especially right now where like interest rates are high, the expectation for what people can get is just so off base. Like people are like, I'm only getting this. Doesn't matter the price point. If it's 300,000 or 3 million.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, shouldn't I be getting more for what I'm paying per month? Really quickly, before we get back into the episode, did you know that email beats the ROI of social media 40-1? If you want to turn your email list into more listing appointments, then you need to check out Ella. Ella is the only email marketing agency for real estate agents. We help you build a hyper-local email newsletter. We also send conversation starter emails, and we do way more. So you can turn your email into a profitable marketing channel this year. Click the link below. Check it out. Hope to see you in there. Let's get back to the episode.
We've integrated a few listings into our videos, and I know Ken does that. And, you know, my business just doesn't take a lot of listings yet. So that's the reason we haven't done it more. But we have found that those particular videos do pretty well. But yeah, I've never thought to make like a home tour focused video and it actually do well and adds, you know, sprinkle in some community stuff, which is interesting.
I was talking to Will about, I was like, you could just clean up in Portland and just like, or Maine and, take way more listings than everyone else because you're showing sellers like, here's how I market a house.
Yeah, it makes you certainly more valuable as a listing agent. If you have an audience of, you know, 3,000 subscribers or whatever your subscriber count is, plus the amount of views that you get on a 12-month recurring basis, you know, like I've definitely gone on the listing appointments and shown that to people.
Yeah.
And it raises people's eyebrows.
So I'm sure you've also heard like Mr. Beast talk about this or like others where it's like the only really two things that matter if you're going to like really focus on the two things, like he making the best video, but does it get clicks? Does it get views? Like click-through rate, retention. So click-through rate is kind of something that's a little under thought of like the thumbnail, the title. What have you learned from the thumbnail and putting emphasis on that and the title?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to my first, 10 videos or so, those thumbnails look a lot different than they do now. Much thanks to Ken Pozak for helping me with that. He was like, your face is way too far. And then you just said something about Mr. Beast. I heard something about, you know, he like whitens his eyes.
Yeah.
And that apparently gets more clicks.
And you used to whiten his teeth when he was open mouth too.
So we used to do that, or we do that. And our click-through rate, I don't know if you're able to track what it's done over the last 12 months, but right now it's over 5.5%.
Nice.
I think that's pretty good.
That's a good number, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially steady on the channel.
And I think it goes back to writing a good script and being genuine on camera. But the first thing you have to do is get people to click.
Yeah.
So over the last 3 months, we've put more emphasis on our thumbnails because, you know, it's an easy thing to change to hopefully increase traffic to the channel.
Yeah.
And over the last 90 days, we have seen a lot more uptick in traffic to the channel. You know, I've heard Alex Ramosi talk about this, but you got to confirm your thumbnail in the first 30 seconds.
Yep.
So I've made a conscious effort to make a relevant thumbnail to what I'm going to be talking about in the video. Same thing with the title, right? Because, I mean, if you mislead someone, they're going to watch it for 15 seconds and say whatever and click off.
Like you said, the thumbnail is like, it's such an easy thing just to switch and up the views. I don't know if you've looked at traffic on your channel. I'm starting to notice, like, because of, I don't know, I just have to assume because it's YouTube TV, search traffic is tending to drop down, and all the others like browse, suggested, like it's starting to become more like a algorithm type platform than a search platform.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of my traffic to my channel comes from the shorts feed, and that's because it's recommended to them.
So some people would say, don't do short form on the channel. It's going to bring in a different audience. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I can't tie direct closings to my short videos. You know, we've made a few like short form based videos. Like these are made for short form videos versus like cropping the long form videos. Mm-hmm. And the long form crop videos do better than the videos we make for like Instagram Reels.
I don't know do you follow like Sean Cannell?
No, he is, but no, I don't follow him.
So he had a podcast with the head of media for Dave Ramsey and Ramsey Solutions and all of them. And they found basically what a lot of other people started doing in podcasting, which is if the short form is similar content to the long form, that generally is one of the best ways to use short form on YouTube, because then it's the same content doing the long form, and then you could feed it to the long form.
Yeah, I see how that would transfer a lot better.
Nice. Because everyone's like, how do you generate leads on YouTube? Some people understand it, some people don't. Do people email you, call you, fill out a form, book a call? What's the main one for you?
So most people visit our website.
Okay.
And we put our website in our description, and we have really good calls to action on the website. A lot of people will email me because that's my call to action in the beginning.
Okay.
I don't tell people to text me. I tell people to text me at the end, but I primarily tell people to email me in the beginning because it's just easier for everybody to look at it in my world, in my company, if it's an email versus a message.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier to track when it's email and website versus like text and call. Yeah. It's easier to lose track of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when it's iMessage or Google Voice, because only I look at my iMessages, right?
Yeah.
Everybody can see my email. Only a couple people can see Google Voice. So it just makes more sense for somebody to come in via email.
So you have multiple calls to action in your video too, email at the beginning and then something at the end talking about all of it, or do you pinpoint?
Yeah, so I say at the end of like my little intro, I say, and if you find this information helpful and you are thinking about relocating to Greenville or like Keowee, please do me a favor, email me at my email below. I would love to chat with you about your relocation to our area in the coming months. That's what gets, I assume, people to email me. And then at the end, I'll know that these people actually watched the whole video, is I'll add my cell phone. So, and then we've, made a call to action about visiting our website, right? And then we will start to notice increased traffic on the website. We've made calls to action about joining our community Facebook group. And a lot of people in the community Facebook group, when they're requesting to join, will say, we've been watching Will's videos, or when we send them an introductory message when they join the group, they'll say, hey, we've watched you on YouTube a lot. We wanted to join your group. It's funny. People actually listen.
Yeah. It's funny to think about. It's like, oh yeah, people are watching 10-minute videos about, or 30-minute videos about the area, and they're actually paying attention, listening. Have you,
I don't know if this is something you track, but have you found a metric about how many videos it takes for someone to call or like at least start to trust you?
So I haven't, just because I feel like I don't even know where to start with that.
Tough question on that.
I've heard people say it's that psychology around a parasocial relationship. It's why when you're watching a movie, once you're like 40 to 60 minutes into the movie, you're so bought into the character and something bad happens to the character, you get emotional. You feel that feeling.
Sure.
So it's like after that 40 to 60 minutes with that person, you start to get invested in that relationship with that person. So if that is, let's say the number, maybe 4-6 videos roughly.
It's so funny. I don't know if, I'm truthfully don't know how many realtors you work with on YouTube, but I'm sure you've heard everybody say that their clients will, talk to them for the first time and they'll say, "Oh my God, I'm talking to Will." Or, "Oh my God, I'm talking to whoever." They thought they would be talking to somebody else. And it's not a cold lead at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've already done the interviewing process.
Yep.
You've already solidified that you know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And now you just got to go out and find them a house. When I was in that place where I was thinking about getting out of real estate.
Yep.
And I really was looking for something to, reignite my interest, which YouTube has. I didn't enjoy the suck of my business, and my business sucked. Like I was calling for sub owners. I went door knocking. I called expireds. Things that I just didn't enjoy doing, and people didn't enjoy me doing it to them. But what I've done with YouTube is I've built a business that I enjoy the suck of, and it's kind of like created this moat around me with my real estate business. And it's made things a lot easier, and I'll say that, that writing scripts every week sucks. Coming up with video topics every week sucks. Taking 10 leads per day in and having to schedule phone calls, not always the funnest thing. It's a blessing. It's not always the funnest thing. But it's a business that I enjoy, and it's been really good to me. So, I guess a message to any realtor that is thinking about getting into YouTube or thinking about going and trying something new to, reignite their business is do something that you're going to enjoy. Because I personally enjoy going out into Greenville and learning about Greenville and talking about Greenville and helping people find their home in Greenville or like Keowee.
It reminds me a lot of, like, I think Alex Ramosi has said it. I'm sure others have as well. A lot of people, they kind of build their business and they're like, it's great, but there's this other new opportunity and I can do this other thing, whether in real estate, recruit agents, do this instead. It's the shiny penny.
Yep.
And no matter what you do, it doesn't get any more necessarily fun. Each has their own suck in it. And it's like, which one are you willing to deal with? And it's just, that's the one.
What do you want to have as your job? Right? Because if you go and chase something new, you're just creating another job for yourself. And, realtors will come up to me and ask me about YouTube and, all these things. And I just, tell them, all right, tell me where the majority of your business comes from. And they'll tell me. And I was like, how have you doubled down on that? And they oftentimes will say, well, I don't know. It just kind of happened. This is just where my business comes from. And I was like, before you go and chase something else, before you go and create another job for yourself, like, for instance, writing scripts, choosing topics, being able to be out of the office for 5-6 hours, especially in the beginning when we were doing more local content out in Greenville, before you can go and commit that type of time to doing something, why don't you go and commit double the time to what's already working for you and see where you are in the next 24 months? Because I guarantee it won't be where you are.
I don't know how much you're using AI currently in your kind of workflow or your business. Like an example is I'm using it almost daily as like, I use Perplexity Pro as kind of like my Google search. I use Claude to write, and then I use other ones like for other things. But like, how are you using AI? Have you brought it in for anything?
I definitely use it on research. And I only truthfully use ChatGPT 4. And I've tried to write scripts in there. And play
not good at writing.
Yeah, and play with prompts, and it just is not me.
Claude is way better at writing than GPT.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll have to look into Claude. But I tried for one video and ended up just nixing it because it just didn't sound like me, and like I couldn't remember what I was saying because I was memorizing this script, and it wasn't like what I would say. But as far as research goes, like I use ChatGPT on every video.
How so?
Well, definitely on like project videos. Or development videos, like, hey, what's the latest with this development in Greenville? Or when the design and review board met in August, what did they talk about with this project based on the notes, and I'll insert the notes. So it's been super as far as a time efficiency thing with me. And it's really helped me still be able to write my videos, because especially with those, 15 developments that are going on downtown, those longer videos, the scripts are longer, that are, 12 to 16 minutes long on the video side. Those take a long time to write, or can, especially if it's a lot of information that you're putting in.
Are you using the paid version for GPT?
Yeah.
I think that one's it has the deep research, or one of them.
Yeah, it's good. And it obviously isn't perfect.
Yeah.
I'll have to Google stuff too.
You might like Perplexity then. Perplexity Pro. That's what used for a lot of the development stuff, because it'll source a lot of the stuff, and it has a lot of the different models inside of it. So it has China's DeepSeek, but just they retooled it so it doesn't give the data to it. And then it has ChatGPT's model in there as well. And it'll do...
It's a search engine?
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. It searches, but then it also gives you all the sources for it too.
One good thing that ChatGPT has been really helpful lately is Apple released their call recording feature.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll ask my clients, oftentimes when I'm taking these calls, and, these calls can be 3, 4, 5 a day on new call, or on the first or second time that, someone that has reached out to us from YouTube's talking to someone in our organization. And, those calls will last 10 to 20, 25 minutes. Oftentimes I'm in the truck. So I'll just ask them, hey, is it okay if I record the call? Because it's easier for me to take notes after when I listen to it back. And I'll just record the call and copy the transcript, throw it into ChatGPT, give it a prompt, and it'll summarize the call, and it'll give me action items based on the call.
Yeah.
And that's we've discovered that just a few weeks ago. It's kind of embarrassing to say, but we've been using that religiously as well.
I'm sure you talk to agents a lot, people who go ask you about YouTube stuff, and there's probably some that are already in YouTube that come to you, and some that are either struggling to grow or struggling to get leads from their YouTube channel and just aren't seeing the success that you are.
Sure.
What have you kind of learned from talking to some of those? You can take either one. For example, I see sometimes people who have a YouTube channel, but then their business on the back end doesn't necessarily equate to the subscribers of their channel.
Yeah.
Really quickly, before we continue this episode, are you looking to grow your YouTube channel this year? We help top agents and team leaders build and grow their YouTube channels and generate an average 300K in GCI. We've helped channels like Brett Davis in Northern California close 2 deals in the first 3 months. We've helped other people like Austin Clark generate over 15 million in business his first year on YouTube. Kyle Taba in Kansas City double his YouTube channel in only 2 months. And then we've helped bigger channels like Chris Colgan generate 30 to 60 leads a month the first 2 months we worked with him. So if you want our help to do all of your YouTube for you, click the link below and schedule a strategy call, and we could talk about how we can help you grow your YouTube channel. Now let's get back to the episode.
The feedback that I get from my clients is that, one, the information you provide is really good. And then 2, you just seem like a genuine person. And I'm not trying to be genuine. It's great to be genuine, but I'm just being myself. I am not this flashy salesperson. I'm not someone that's going to try to convince you to buy a house. I lead with information, and I want you to make the best decision for yourself. And I think that translates really well, especially when you don't know somebody and they're about to uproot their life and move to the area that you're telling them about. They are really putting a lot of trust in you to help them with that process. So, with the agents that I've talked to, I kind of feel underqualified to tell people how to run their business. And I think a lot of realtors deal with this as their business grows, as I feel like an imposter a lot of times with where I am in life, especially in my business. I didn't think owning a business that generated over $1 million in revenue was something that was in the cards for me. Much less, I didn't know if I'd ever make 6 figures. And you get around these people that are machines whether it be from an efficiency perspective, not necessarily just from making money, but, they have a family and this is when they're working and this is when they're not. And they have a awesome business. And then you have, friends that are seller agents who do everything themselves and they have a good business because they've leveraged in the right places. And that's where I was until a couple months ago. And, people in my market will always, just by starting to have the business that I have and the, I guess, reputation that I have of being one of the top producers in my market, people call you, people ask you questions. And a lot of times I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I feel like I've done something that's really niche and my avatar is helping people relocate to our area. I oftentimes just go back to the question of where has your business come from and what can you do to double down on that?
Yeah.
Because I noticed very early that YouTube was working and then I pumped more money into it. I doubled down on it and then it shot.
I also heard Brian Chesky, founder of Airbnb, kind of talk about that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I believe. And he basically said it's like when you're pushing the boundaries, especially as an entrepreneur, you're doing something new. You're doing something different. There's not necessarily a blueprint for it.
Yeah.
And there's going to be that imposter syndrome regardless, because it's like you're just doing something that's new for you. And I think that's something to be said no matter what. Like when you're doing anything new, when you're like pushing the boundaries on anything, you're going to feel like you're an imposter, but it's because you're doing something that's new to you.
If you feel like, you're an authority in a room, you're in the wrong room. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that imposter syndrome is probably a little bit of a healthy thing, if it's, not overwhelming you or whatever. But if you feel like you're pushing the boundaries, if you feel like you're, doing something that you're kind of just flying by the seat of your pants, it's probably not a bad place to be, especially if it's working. And I still feel like that in my YouTube business. In January, we had the most leads that have ever reached out to us ever.
How many?
Over 50. In January.
Think about that. 50 inbound people in 1 month. It's a lot.
Ken Pozak probably has that in a couple weeks, right? Or maybe a couple days. Who knows? But, I'll probably always feel like that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because I never thought this life was one that I would live. And when I said earlier, not only am I a different realtor than I used to be, I'm a much better person. Because one, of my wife, she's awesome. And two, because in order to grow, you have to be open to growing.
Yep.
And in order to be where I am or whatever, you're not going to get here by being who you were.
Talking about like growing, talking about team leverage. One of the interesting things that was also mentioned was you brought your wife into the business and then you've added also more team. So can you talk about that, like the decision to have her come into the business?
When I left the team that I was on, they did everything: transaction coordination, marketing, et cetera, et cetera. So the first hire I made was a coach when I left my team. And then the second one was a transaction coordinator because I didn't need to be doing paperwork. I'm not good at it. It doesn't generate revenue for my business. It's not something I should be doing. The third person I brought on was a virtual assistant who's still with me today. And she acts as an executive assistant. So she does basically all of our marketing that you see, a lot of our back end, email, taking inbound lead information. And then I just hired 6 months ago, another executive assistant, but he more so acts like an ISA or like a pipeline manager. So he's my gatekeeper with leads. And all the people that I don't have time to follow up with, he's the one who follows up with them and makes sure that we're keeping that hook in the water for them. I talk to the people that are going to transact in the next 90 days. Everybody else he talks to.
Nice.
And then he's the one escalating into my A category for me to talk to. So anybody that's categorized as a B, C, or D, he's handling those conversations. He's increasing the stage at which they're in right now. And then Blair, she is a pediatric occupational therapist. So she works with kids, and she is very, very talented at what she does. And she saw that I really needed help. And so her mom's a real estate agent in West Virginia. And I thought she would be really good. Like, she probably will take all my clients because she's much more likable than me. So she recently got her license, and she's got a few clients already, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But the only way that I skipped a couple hires, the only way I was able to get from 48 deals to 68 deals to 102 deals over the last few years are showing agents. A lot of my business is buyers, obviously, through my channel. And I've hired a few agents within my office to do showings for me, or to help me with showings when I'm unable to do them. Because you think about it, you drive 30 minutes to a house, show up for 30 minutes to an hour, and then you drive 30 minutes back to the office. I mean, that's an hour to 2.5 hours that you're spending maybe showing a house that your client will buy. And your client doesn't care if you show them the house. They want to be with someone who's competent, who knows what they're talking about, but they care about getting the best deal. And if you and your team can give them the best deal, then you've done your job. So the showing agents have stepped in with the showings, and then I'm still the main point of contact that they have throughout the transaction.
Did you ever feel any guilt kind of having a showing agent, feeling like they're not getting the same experience, or like they may feel like, oh, he's just having me work with someone else?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, some people raise that question. Everybody who shows houses for me, I've trained them how to show houses. I train them how I show houses. And that experience that someone gets seeing a house with Eden or Yaneth is going to be very similar to me. What I tell my clients, and I just set that expectation up front in our buyer consultation before we ever look at a house, I tell them, I may or may not be the person who walks you through the house. I don't think your schedule should be dictated by my schedule. So if I'm unavailable to walk you through a house, we have these two people who I've hired to help show you the house. And people love that, right? Because they just want to get into the best deal as quickly as possible. If they see a house that they like and they text us and say that, hey, this is when we're available and I'm not, it's usually no problem with my showing agent showing them.
It's very like blunt and direct. It's to say your schedule should not be dictated by my schedule, but
yeah, I mean, it's
vice versa too.
It's a no nonsense approach too, right? They know I'm busy, right? And I want to be respectful of their time, just like I would hope that they would be of mine. And I know that whether I walk you through a house and point out a kitchen to you, or if it's Yaneth, you're going to get the same experience. But the person that's negotiating on your behalf is still going to be me. So that's what I control. And I still control the showings because I know the people that are walking you through the house, they've sold a lot of houses and they've shown a lot of houses too. So it's not like you're working with someone who just got their license, who's never walked through a house. You're walking through a house with someone who's got a lot of experience. And, the prevailing majority of clients don't care.
Yeah.
There's a few people who do care, and I will say, all right, I'll be the one who shows you the house. And I get that. Like some people, that's what they want. That's fine. But most people appreciate that, we want to work around their schedule.
Yep.
Real estate's not 9 to 5. So
it's smart to set the expectations up front.
Well, it also, if you look at it from an efficiency standpoint and an effectiveness standpoint, me showing a house, and this is for the realtors, not for the clients, but me showing a house really isn't a high dollar per hour activity.
Yeah.
Me looking at my pipeline and calling somebody in my pipeline to check in with them about their timing and their motivation, or to confirm their trip to Greenville, or to meet with someone at the office to sign them on as a buyer, or to meet with a seller to meet with them to list their home. That's a high dollar per hour activity for me.
Yeah.
And the more I can focus on my higher dollar per hour activities like I've done in 2024, like I did in 2024, you see the results compared to 2023. And the volume was almost double.
Yeah.
The GCI was almost double. And again, it's all about what you focus on.
You wouldn't have been able to do that if you were showing every single house for every single person.
And I would be miserable.
Yeah. Looking at the ISA, some people would be like, how did they move the deal closer to the 90 days for you?
We have like a master spreadsheet, and that's our pipeline sheet. And myself and Rob and Marie Jean, my other assistant, have access to it. Any conversation that occurs gets recorded into that master sheet. And, let's just say that someone reaches out to me via email from YouTube and says, hey, we're going to be relocating toward the end of the year. They probably will not be coming into town in the next month or two.
Mm-hmm.
They'll probably schedule a time to visit late summer, early fall, just to get reacquainted and to start looking for houses. That's not necessarily someone that I should talk to, because they've told me, and we've asked them 3 different ways, hey, if the right house were to come up, would you buy it? And if they tell me no, then Rob gets to talk to them until, let's say, late summer. Because again, it's probably not most effective for me to reach out to them if someone else could do it. And you got to think, this isn't like 50 people.
Yep.
These are hundreds of people in our pipeline that have reached out to us from YouTube. So it was the reason I hired Rob is because I lost over $100,000 in 2024 because I couldn't follow up with everybody who reached out to me and wanted you to use me as their realtor. And I tracked that by actually following up those people and them either telling me that they already transacted or them deciding to use someone else because I wasn't being as responsive as I needed to be, because my attention was spread this way.
Yeah.
Instead of in this 90-day corridor.
Yep.
And that pays for Rob.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing I feel like is, especially as an agent, it's like living in that 9-day corridor. So having someone who's able to live outside of that, is he local? He is.
He's in the office.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So his primary job is to make outbound calls to people in our database and in the pipeline. But it's also to do other, clerical things for me, like closing gifts, et cetera, et cetera.
Nice.
So that's why I needed him to be in person versus someone virtual.
Makes sense. So when you look at all of the growth that you've had going from a single agent to having now a team, what has been like the toughest or the hardest lesson that you've had to learn?
You can't be everything to everybody, probably. I'm kind of a people pleaser by nature. And last year was tough for me to realize that not only did I lose over $100,000 in income, that's, 8 or 9 families that I let down. And that, I don't like that. Like it really affected me when someone told me that they used somebody else. So being able to hire people to help me with that has been very difficult too, because I don't want this massive team. It's not any, I say that it's not anything that, one, I ever thought I would get to, and 2, that I ever envisioned myself leading. So, going from a solo agent with, let's just say, a transaction coordinator, that's hard enough hiring a virtual assistant and telling them what to do. Because I know that I do it and I do it pretty good. I know that I shouldn't be doing it. to, hiring showing agents and trusting them to show your clients houses.
Yeah.
And trusting them to get your clients to reach a decision whether or not to buy the house, not necessarily to buy the house, but say yes or no if they are going to. Like, each gradual step in the process has been challenging. Kind of letting go, that chain of trust. But, it's evident in the results that we've gotten that it's worked. So I say all that to say the hardest thing for me to have learned is letting go. And I think a lot of agents deal with that.
What helped you?
Knowing that I wanted a bigger business. And having a coach to consult with. I didn't want to sell $16 million a year and be unhappy. And that's what I was. Outside looking in, I had a really cool life, really cool business. And that's an awesome business. I'm not knocking anybody for having that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was sick of working all the time. And I work now more than I probably ever have, truthfully. But it's on stuff that I enjoy doing more.
Yeah.
I'm not doing paperwork. I'm not doing email marketing. I'm not inputting people into our database. And I'm not sitting at my office all day when I have a day to do it, calling people, right, that are going to transact in 12 months. So I guess understanding that there's other people who can do your job just as good as you, or if not better. And those are the people you need to find and bring into your world.
So you're in a much happier place in your business?
I am, man. Yeah. I feel like I work harder on the things that I work on. And I feel like I still work like a lot of hours.
Yeah.
But like I said, I've slowly and steadily built this business that I enjoy the suck of.
Yeah.
And if I didn't, I would not be a realtor.
Enjoying the suck.
So I gave myself no other choice but to kind of build a business that I would enjoy.
Yeah. So if more people want to follow you along with your journey, or just reach out, where should they go?
Yeah, follow me on YouTube at GVL Real Estate. And then you can follow me on Facebook. You can probably type in Will Sawyer and somehow find me. Hopefully there's not too many of us out there. And then Instagram at William Cohen Jr.
Nice. So when you think about what you want to build in the next year to couple years, and you look at all of these people, especially you have the Ken Pozaks and other people like him, and you can see there's ways to build it.
Yeah.
What are you kind of looking at, and how are you looking to build your business, the team, the media? What's that going to look like?
I think the biggest gap that I have in my business is not doing enough sphere business. And that's because I don't talk to my sphere enough, because I'm working with a lot of buyers. I sold over 90 buyers last year, or 90 homes to buyers last year. I think taking some of that off of my plate is going to allow me to reach out to my sphere more and hopefully start taking more listings, which will drive even more business to my company. Mm-hmm. I've thought about bringing media in-house because, I can control what's going on. It's easier for me to shoot content. It's easier for me to do podcasts if I want to. It's easier for me to do short-form videos. And I feel like there's just a little bit more collaboration there. Mm-hmm. And I haven't done that yet. And largely in part because of the videographer I work with is awesome. He's really, really sharp. But it is something that I've thought about bringing in, and I think it would be beneficial if I did in a lot of ways. But, before my business can grow anymore, probably going to have to take less buyers because I don't have time to do a lot of other stuff other than, say, my 20%. In addition to negotiating contracts, et cetera, et cetera. So until that happens, I mean, truthfully, if I were to have the business that I have had last year for the next 5 years, I wouldn't be mad. At some point, you don't want anything else. At some point, you definitely don't need anything else. I definitely don't need anything else. So that's kind of the inflection I'm at now, is like my business, I'm at this glass ceiling of I can't grow my business until I start taking less buyers, because buyers take a lot of time. Yeah. So until we can get Blair in place, maybe another agent in place to handle 50% of these buyers that come in, I know that my growth's limited. And I think any team owner would tell you that, is that until they brought in agents, and it was really hard for them to give business to other people, but until they did that, they were stuck. And they couldn't go and pursue these other things that they wanted to do for the business to bring in even more business, i.e. listings. So yeah, I have thought about bringing media in-house, and I do want my business to grow. I think, truthfully, what I'm struggling with now is, goal setting, and this is a long-winded answer, I understand. Goal setting has always been tough for me. When I was fresh out of college, I didn't care about money that much. I didn't need a lot of money to live off of. So when I wasn't making a lot of money and I was working 4 nights at a restaurant, for a year, that was cool. Because my friends were making the same amount as me. But when that started to change, and when I started to get around higher, more productive realtors, like my mindset started to change. And when you have a year like I had last year, my goal last year was 75 units, and I beat that by 50%.
Yeah.
And the volume beyond what I thought I was going to do, and the income beyond what I thought I was going to do. You're like, what's next? If I have the same year again, I'm not going to be mad. And if I have 5 more of those years, I probably wouldn't be mad either. So a lot of what my coach and I are talking about now is, what do I want in the next 5 years? And I don't know. I'm not clear on that yet. I know that I'm always not going to have as much time as I do now, because we'll probably have a family in the next 5 years. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm putting some intention behind hiring and building this small team that I think I want, versus a big team. And we'll see what happens.